Hello, welcome back to the L&M channel. My name is Chris, but my artist name is L&M, and here we talk about journals and art and writing and creative habits, creative practice, and what have you. And today's video, we're going to be doing a flip through of my January spreads in my media journal and Commonplace books. So originally I was going to do it all together, but I am not 100% sure if that's going to take too long or if that I have a lot of notebooks and I wanted to just give an update of how they're going and do the monthly flip through. I do weekly flip throughs on Patreon, so if you would like them to be more often and more in depth, then do check that out. That's always linked in my bio, or rather always linked in the description of the video. But I'm going to be doing monthly flip throughs hopefully every single month for my journals that I'm using and just kind of update you on what's going on. There has been some changes, like I've mentioned, I think in a couple of videos, maybe perhaps with the tan. And yeah, I think that I will. Should I do this first? Should I just do them all together? Let's just do them all together. There's nothing to flip through in some of them, so I guess we can do them all together. That works. I will leave the media journal at the end because that's probably my favorite. So I am still using my passport as like my everyday carry, but there has been some changes inside of it in that I added the passport sized sticker insert. But then I went ahead and added some alphas to it. I actually recorded a body doubling video earlier today, of me doing it, and it was such a disaster, as you can see, that I stopped. I only added the alphas that I created for my February printables because those I knew would stick in here, and then just a couple of other ones that did stick, but I was having a rough time today, guys. And then I have my craft insert. I have my monthly, which I'm using as a health journal for the most part, but I also track here when I do my morning pages, how many pages I do of morning pages and the time that I wake up. I also track in here my menstrual cycle. I track my any headaches because I suffer from migraines, and also when I take pain medication. So that's what I'm doing in here. I really like it. I did have a health journal when I first started doing health journaling in a Hobonichi weeks, and I do have a video on how I did that, but I did find that I was tracking way too much stuff that at the end of the day I wasn't really referencing, and I fell off of it. And so this year I really wanted a place to track certain things that I knew I needed to have that information for, and I've been having a really good time in this little insert. And what I end up doing is that I take this with me everywhere. I don't really often go out, so this is mostly an everyday carry for me to go between apartments, my mom's apartment and my grandparents' apartment. And then also I take this with me when I go to do morning pages, and if I need to write anything down for like myself for the time that I wake up and what have you, I'll put this in here. And then if I have to write anything down that I don't want to forget because I want to add it into another journal, then I'll write it in this little insert here that I have in the back, just tucked in without any, not inside of a band. And so that's kind of what's been going on with here with this little thingy-majiggy. I did end up taking off the charm and I added it to the weeks, the Tragan cover, so that because it was interfering. And I think I am going to take off the wabi-sabi from this band at least because it's always backwards. Like I always often I end up doing it backwards and that irritates me. So I will probably take it off of here, or I found actually a little clip that I could probably add to it. So we'll see if that ends up getting removed or not, but absolutely love this. I do think I want to add like a little bit of ribbon to it, but we shall see. This is going very, very well. We'll continue using that. In terms of so basically my journaling system is separated into two sort of parts, one of it being memory keeping and one of it being media journaling, which I guess technically we could say it's split into three parts because I have like my memory keeping, which is sort of in tandem with my commonplacing and media journaling, and then sort of like my stream of consciousness kind of daily log situation. And the daily log situation is what's kind of been on a little bit of the rocks lately. So I'll talk about that for a second. I have my a little daily log insert that I have set up here that I have kind of standalone outside of a cover because I just love it so much. I was inspired by Mina Pomelo. She went on on a trip to Scotland a couple of weeks ago, and for that they just use a little insert like this, and I loved it so much that it inspired me, and I did it as well. And so I love it. I really, really do. And this started off as being what I intended to be my everything journal for kind of like daily logging and keeping track of all the memories and just stream of consciousness journaling. Basically, everything that wasn't picture heavy was going to go, that was picture heavy was going to go in the art journal, and that's been going fine. But everything else would go in here in tandem with the vertical weekly that lives in here. And I found pretty fast that it wasn't working for me. I didn't like how the spreads were coming out at all, in truth. And I was having a really hard time with this grid. I don't want to zoom you in too much because there's some stuff that I don't necessarily want you to read. But this is what it started like. And I did have some really nice initial pages. I really love how this spread came out with the ink blobs and just kind of like the design of it being large lettering. I really, really enjoyed that. And I think I enjoyed this one as well. And I was doing different things, right? Like if you've been watching some of my videos, you'll know that I kind of, I always say that I start off the year wanting to have like one big book of everything. And then I end up in different journals compartmentalizing, which is 100% what's happening. This year, I'm determined not to stop journaling though, regardless of whether I'm kind of jumping in and out, because last year I totally lost February, March, and April practically. Well, not April, but most of all of March, and part of February is lost to history. But originally I wanted to have a space because the tan was going to be my functional planner. This was going to house kind of everything media journal related, kind of be like my media journal companion, and then also be like my daily log because I like kind of checking in. So it was inspired, and I'm pretty sure I've done it before, but I had stopped doing it at some point. And I was watching one of Elle's videos from the Common Corner, and she checks in when she first checks into her notebooks. And so I started doing that, but I took it a little step further, and I check it in every single time. I really enjoy seeing the times that I go into my journals and to see like little patterns. So like, for example, one pattern that I realize is that I oftentimes want to check into my journals at around 3:45. There's a few times that I found myself kind of see like 15:36. Let's see if I can give you another example. So 15:36, 15:35. My cat's causing mayhem. 15:35. Let's see if I can give you another example here. 15:52. So I tend to go in at 3-ish. And in my other journals from last year, I noticed that as well. And so I really like kind of checking in. I enjoy that. And it's not necessarily something super intense. Like 9:54, woke up much later than I expected and scheduled for. It's a sunny day and it's really cold. Somehow I managed to put on my socks without causing myself too much pain. A win is a win. And this because this was like right after my surgery. I had gallbladder removal surgery on the 20th of December. And so I couldn't really like bend over because of my abdomen area. And yeah, I was adding quotes and just random little bits. I added like a little currently inked section here, and I wasn't hating it, but I also wasn't loving it. These two first spreads were pretty good. Another thing that also affected some of my journaling in January is that I was not living in my apartment. I actually, today, February 9th, as I'm recording this, is my first day fully back in my apartment. I was living with my mom because of recovery and surgery and all that. And so I didn't have a lot of the stuff that I am used to journaling with. And so I'm not used to needing to be very like travel conscious when it comes to my journaling systems because I like live at my desk for the most part. So that was something that was a bit of a learning curve, I guess, for me in terms of trying to journal and all that. And yeah, just trying to find my stride within the system. And I was kind of struggling a bit. This is like a full page of lyrics, just lyrics. This is the song, if you guys are familiar, the epic musical, the song with Odysseus and Penelope. I think I wrote it here. Would you fall in love with me again? Oh, the song had a chokehold on me in January, so I put that in there. Again, quotes. And then this was just a little happy mail that I received from Mina. I put that in here as well. Writing about book that I read, We Used to Live Here. That was the first book that I finished in 2025. First book I finished in January. And so I wrote a little bit about that. And yeah, I was just not having a whole lot of fun. These spreads I pre-blobinated ahead of time, and I really don't like them. I kind of like how this one came out after I added this little tip in that Mina sent me, but I was not having fun. I think, yeah, you can see here I think what I'm lacking and want more of in the spreads is white space. Like, I want them to be able to breathe a little bit. I'll work on it the next few days and see how I like it. Um, Something that I write a lot about in these stream of consciousness little blurbs that I get into are journaling thoughts, because I'm constantly thinking about journaling, as a lot of us are. I was trying out different header styles here on 110. I wrote, I think I'm gonna try not adding the day headers and just time stamping and see how I like that. And obviously I didn't like that because I started putting the headers in again. Yeah, I was just really struggling with this journal, not really sure what to do. And not really liking it. This was, I think, like the last straw. I really absolutely dislike how this spread looks. And don't get me wrong, I'm not the type of person that needs every spread to be pretty. But if I'm struggling in a journal consecutively for various days/weeks, journaling is my hobby, right? And so I'm not going to do something just because I've said that I'm going to use it and not have fun in it. And so since I was not having fun in this, I decided to kind of change what I was doing. And around this time is when I decided that I was going to stop using the Tan as a functional planner and use it as like my media journal companion/commonplace book. And once I decided that, then that really decreased what this journal needed to be, and it just needed to be a stream of consciousness place. And there were a few days where I didn't really need to check in, or I was too busy to. And so that ended up with these spreads where I decided that, and this is when I actually started liking these spreads a lot more, is that I decided that this journal is going to be what Maddie calls her ranting journal. And it's basically long form journaling, right? Like whenever I need to process something, this is where I'm going to do that. I tend to do a lot of processing in my morning pages in the morning, but sometimes during the day, I need to check in and just kind of get some stuff out of my head and write it down onto a page. And so this is where it's going to live. And of course, I'm going to continue to decorate the pages because that's just what I enjoy doing. So I use some printables by Erin Ware and some of my own printables as well. And yeah, that's what I've kind of been doing here. I'm kind of covering a bit because this is a little bit of confidential stuff and like ranting and, emotion heavy. And I don't really have a need to censor those things because it's not like super confidential, but I would rather not, just don't read them. And so these are some of the pages that I set up in my February setup. And yeah, I've just been using it for kind of long form journaling and kind of processing, and I've been really enjoying that. And so that's what I'm going to continue to use this for moving into February. And yeah, been really enjoying that. So that's the kind of stream of consciousness journal and the evolution of what that looks like. And I still do timestamping in here. So next up is what was in tandem with that journal, which is the Vertical Weekly. And so the Vertical Weekly has been interesting. I think I'm going to, in tandem with I'm gonna talk about later, I think I'm going to slightly retire the Vertical Weekly for the time being, at least in here, because I'm also struggling a bit with it. And this is a type of layout that I feel really at home with when it's working. But then I do kind of have like my ins and outs with it. If you saw my flip through from 2024, I think I did flip through that journal. I went in and out of. Oh no, it was in the tier ranking video. I talked about the Vertical Weekly, how I'm constantly going into that journal and out of it and just coming back to it when I need it and leaving it when I don't. Since it's undated, it's not a big deal. I just really like sometimes this format, this layout really speaks to me, and sometimes it just doesn't. And I think right now I'm in the phase where it's not speaking to me 100%, and so I think I'm just going to let it be. But I did end up doing a spread for every single week in January. This is one of my favorites, even if it is really, really simple. And for the most part, it's just like little highlights and some also daily logging. That's what I'm used to doing in here. But on this, you can see there's a lot of writing here. What I tried doing was kind of doing a general overview what happened in the day, and I did like that, but I didn't keep up with it. And so this is my favorite spread of the month for sure. I love the stickers that I use. I love how I did it. I love the little titles that I gave for every single blurb. I love the stickers that I used. I do enjoy that there's some like blank space. I don't know. It just feels very, very nice to me. I love this spread. And I was just talking about, obsessing over the Dyatlov Pass incident. I finished reading Dead Mountain. That was the second book that I finished in 2025 this year in January, looking into more podcast and content to research more a bit about that incident, which is an incident from the 1950s. David Lynch sadly passed away this Thursday. Um, I took the plunge and joined a course that I really wanted to, but hadn't yet, like 2 days before the course started. And so I wrote a little bit about that as well. And confused about enjoying Mad Max. I watched Mad Max for the first time, and so I was a little confused about that. And I wrote about it. I put biggest plot twist of 2025 so far is me getting Mad Max brain rot. Like, wow, can't stop thinking about it. Yeah, I was really, really surprised. I watched that only to be able to watch Furiosa, and I ended up liking Mad Max Fury Road more so than Furiosa. Super, super intense plot twist. We couldn't believe it. Still in shock, to be honest. This is another spread that I really, really like. So, like the last 2 of January, I really enjoyed. I like the colors again, which speaks to my blue phase that I keep denying that I am in. Again, really enjoyed the kind of titles to the blurbs. Just talking about an appointment that I had with my surgical doctor as my follow-up from the surgery, new time blocking method app that I was using for productivity since I was no longer using the tan. I needed to figure out what I was going to do for functional, and then I decided to do that digitally on an app. And so far it's working well, so let's see how it goes. I'm the type of person that constantly goes in and out of digital spaces when it comes to functional planning. I feel like there's a lot about functional planning that really works for me, and then there's a lot that doesn't. And so I'm constantly, again, just back and forth, very fluid with what works and what doesn't, and just letting myself kind of go in and out of those systems when I need to. I was struggling to watch something to watch this week. Like it was like 3 days where I would just spend 1 hour each day trying to scroll through different streaming services and not figuring out what it is that I wanted to watch. It was horrible. I was not having a good time. And this day I was talking about how I finally had some time to play with the Inkvent colors. I still haven't finished doing all the swatches for those. I'm going painstakingly slow. I mean, I did the swatches for them when I first unboxed them, but not like the ink play. And so what I'm doing is that I'm doing 2 different like ink play spreads for my printables every month, and so until I finish. So yeah, I think I'm on day 8 or something, but yeah. And then this page, I didn't end up doing any journaling this week. So later on, actually on the 3rd or the 4th, what day was it? On the 3rd or the 4th, what day was it? The 4th. I ended up just writing a blurb about how like the week is gone. Like my memory is not the best, and I didn't write anything in the week, and so the memories are gone. And that's just is what it is. I wrote I guess that's okay. Sometimes a pretty page can be a pretty page. Some things inevitably get lost to history, and there's no use fighting that truth. Like it is what it is. I wasn't gonna sit down and waste a lot of time trying to figure out what happened. It's gone. This is a pretty page, and that's all there is to it. And then this is this week, which I've only checked in a couple of times. I might do some backlogging today, but I am not holding my breath for it. I think I did decide that I'm just gonna let this kind of be for now and retire it. And I haven't done anything with the bi-weekly. That one is like a complete and utter mess. Yeah, I haven't done anything in there. We'll see. Eventually, we'll try something for sure because that's just the way that I am. I like jumping in and out of journals, and kind of whenever I need something, I'll go into it. I think at some point I tried using this after I moved out of the tan to like do functional planning, but immediately changed over into the app. So that was short lived, like less than a day. But that's the TN system. So a little bit of struggling, but nothing too severe, nothing too unusual for me. And nothing really exiting the system per se. This is just transformed into something else. The tan transformed into something else. The only one that's being semi-retired is the vertical weekly, but I know I'm going to be in that later on in the year anyways, so I'm not too pressed about it. That's totally fine. I will talk a little bit more about what's going to be replacing that vertical weekly in a second, because I'm not 100% abandoning it. I'm just kind of transferring over where it's happening. But yeah, that's for a little later. Watch to the end to find out about that. Okay, next up is the Hours Journal, which I have made videos, journal with me videos this month, I think 2. One that was a 6-minute video and one that was a little longer and more body doubling-esque. This is my joy journal, which I have been really enjoying. This is another one that kind of shifted a little bit in purpose from what I originally wanted to, but it is in my system and it is working really, really well. And I will be zooming you in a little bit more because this one I don't mind you seeing. This is what the little intro page looks like. I just have a couple of things in this little pack. Just some gloomy cards, some of the cards that came with the Our Studio journal, and this Baum Kuchen business card that says your soul is ocean deep. I don't know. I really like it. And so I just have that tucked in here, a little makeshift pocket. And then I added the Book of Joy because I officially named it the Book of Joy. That is what it is. And I added this sticker of mine, which is 2025. This is for my February printables, which are still available on Sweet Treats if you're interested. This is a picture from the month that I ended up printing, and it was too big for any of the places that I wanted to put it in, so I just added it in here because it is one of my favorite pictures. I'm sure that it's going to be one of my happiest little moments looking back in the year because it's my mom. She was helping me move back in and cleaning and reorganizing and setting up my apartment because like I haven't been here full time in 2 months, and so there was a lot to kind of rearrange. And she kind of moved where my dining room table was, put my typewriter on it, and then put my Deku and Bakugo plushies sitting in front of each other, and it was just perfect. I love this little memory. So this journal is primarily my Joys journal, and the monthly I'm using it for kind of like fan art and media collection. I have media represented in various journals. Media is really, really important to me, as many of you know, and so I have it represented in different journals in different ways because it is a large part of what I do in day to day. I am unable to travel very much because of financial restraints, and I don't really leave my house very often because I don't have a car and because I just like spending time in my house. So for me, traveling happens through media. So media is really, really important. And so one of the ways that I'm keeping track of this kind of part of my life is through different means. And so in the Hour Journal, I'm putting in little bits of fan art and just media related things that brought me joy because, again, this is my joy book. And so, yeah, there's just an array of different fan arts and original artwork from the manga artists. I have some images from my Liberation Notes because that's one of the things that I watched in the month. Some images and outtakes from Furiosa because even though I preferred Mad Max, Furiosa had Anya Taylor-Joy, which love her. Like I believe in Bug-Eye supremacy when it comes to Anya Taylor-Joy. I will watch anything that she's in. I love her. Anya Taylor-Joy and Melissa Barrera can do no harm for me. I love them so much, and so I wanted to commemorate her because I'm obsessed with her. And then just some One Piece related things. I think this is really nice too because, and it's why I do it in my media journal as well. I'll show you that in a bit. It helps me just at a glance to see what fandoms I was in, what things I was enjoying. And so this is really, really nice. I did already set up February and started working on that, but that will be for February. And so we start off in January. I don't have anything on the first page. This is like a little place. All of my picture heavy memories will be stored in this one. I have a notoriously difficult relationship with printing images. And so I've been trying to be really on top of printing images and creating a system that works. So on Monday, I transfer all of my images from my phone to a Dropbox that is separated by week. And I prepare it, set it up in a template that I have on Affinity Photo or, Photoshop. I used to have Photoshop, but now I'm using Affinity Photo. I set it up on there where I have templates for different sized images. And then I send it to print. I cut it with my Silhouette. And then throughout the week, I can sit down and journal about it. But I have a system that I'm really trying to keep to. So make sure that I'm always up to date because if not, I really hate the backlogging process. And like I mentioned when I was talking about my vertical weekly, if it's gone, it's gone. And it's a little easier with this specifically because the photo is the memory. And so if I see the photo, I will remember what it's about. Unlike with daily logging where it's a stream of consciousness thing, right? Like the memory only exists in the moment or the thought only exists in the moment. And once it's gone, it's gone. So if I don't write it down, then it's lost to history, right? So it's a little easier to backlog when it comes to photo, but I just hate the backlogging process. And so Yeah, I've just been gluing in some photos. There's a lot of photos of my cats. I had received quite a few bouquets in the beginning of the year because of my surgery as like get well soon situations. I have a little screenshot here of Law when he's talking to Robin and he's like smiling but an evil smile, and she goes, "Oh, I like that smile. That's a smile full of evil." And then he goes, "Is there any other reason to smile?" And it just made me laugh. It's one of those things, right? Like this journal is really about looking at it and just feeling happiness, like a smile coming to my face. And it really is accomplishing that. And I've really enjoyed kind of like the different ways that I'm journaling in it in January. It's been really, really nice. I am not sticking to a specific, um, what have you, like layout because I will get bored. But I am experimenting with different ones and seeing what I like, what I don't like. So here again, we have some other bouquets. I did start drying them to be able to keep them long term. This is something that I keep thinking about. I keep laughing every single time I see it. Born to be a hater, forced to understand where you're coming from. Most relatable thing ever. Using a lot of my printables as well. This is another journal that I'm really trying to use a lot of my printables in because I want to commemorate them. This is a more minimal, if you will, layout and more, I guess, organized isn't really the right word. It's more, uh, I can't, my brain isn't braining, but here's some more flowers. I did end up gluing in some or sticking in some stickers that arrived from Happy Mail from Patreons that I'm a part of, and some mail stuff as well. More pictures of my cats because I love them. I was talking about how I was converting the tan into a media journal. As you can see, it was the 14th, so around here, and I will talk about that later. This was something that really, really made me happy. And then some funny memes. Get in loser, we're healing and falling in love with life again. I love it. I was talking to mom about potential changes to the kitchen. And then this came up on my Instagram, which is the word sundoku, which is a Japanese word which means collecting books and letting them pile up for the joy of knowing they're there. And so that's also a concept that really, really made me happy because I am a collector of not just books, but many other things. And so that is something that made me really happy. And then this is a very maximalist spread in comparison. I ended up printing a lot of images much smaller than usual, and so it created a more chaotic kind of feel to the spread. I don't hate it, it's just different. Lots of memes as well. My best friend Natalie sent me this, and she said that it was me. Sorry, I can't hang out tonight. I foresaw a dire omen. So accurate. A quote here by Olivia Ann Rose. I am half who I used to be and half of who I am becoming. Really, really love that. Some post about grandma core. This little screenshot of a haiku chapter just giving super wise advice. He who would climb a ladder must begin at the bottom. Here's the image that I have here in the front as well, just smaller and put in within the context of the week. I was watching one of Mina Pomelo's Patreon videos, which always makes me really, really happy whenever she's media journaling. I get really happy whenever anyone media journals. It's one of my favorite things ever. I posted a video of a video that I posted a screenshot rather of a video that I posted today. More pictures of my cats, pictures of my printables, or rather no. Finally, some ink play. This is when I was actually doing the ink play. Rather, this is one of the ones that went into my printables, and this was also really funny. Inside me there are two clowns. One who romanticizes community and one who romanticizes isolation. The most accurate thing ever. And again, using a lot of my printables and stuff. And then this is another spread that is more minimal. I say minimal and I just mean less chaotic because obviously this is the opposite of minimal. But yeah, you're just using some stickers. There was not a lot of photos this week, as you can see, and so of course pictures of my cat, but not a lot of photos, and so there's a little bit more writing and a little bit more deco and some quotes, and so yeah, I really like that. Sometimes there are weeks where there's not a lot of photos, but there are still moments of joy, and if I can capture them fast enough, or if I can remember to come into my journal fast enough, then I can capture them. And yeah, I really like this spread as well. And that's it. We are on this week, and so tomorrow I will transfer all of the images and get that in there. And then on the back, I decided to put like Happy Mail, and so the only thing I have in here right now is this letter that Micah sent me when she and I did our ink swap. So that's what's the back there. That is the Hours Studio Journal. Really, really loving that journal quite a lot. And so now we're getting into the media journals, which of course are my favorite journals. This is my media log and then my media companion, which is also somewhat of a commonplace book. And this system is going to change a little bit. So this is my media journal, and it is in a Hobonichi Weeks. Here in the back, I recently got the Tragan cover, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I don't care that it is a hair magnet. I don't care that it gets easily dirty because I have cats. I love it so much. I love it so much. I had gotten one other Hobonichi cover, which you guys probably know if you've been here long enough. And unfortunately, I had sensory issues with it. And so I had to, I sold it to my sister. So I was really nervous when I went to get this one because I was afraid that it was going to give me sensory issues. But I love the feel of this fabric. And so, spoiler alert, I did buy another one, which is going to be for whatever changes are happening. But I got it in A5 size. So that's coming in the mail, and I'm really, really excited about it. I did get the same black. I debated getting the green, but I think I'm just going to get the black. I do prefer kind of like this color. And then here in the back, I have these two things tucked in here, but really the only one that should be tucked in there is this field notes. And I just have that in there so that if this is kind of travels with me in the same sense that the EDC travels with me. This is like my book companion. So whenever I go to read, I take this with me, particularly because I have this little notebook in here and because I have all of my, like, I have a highlighter in here, I have my pens, and then I also have tabs in here as well. So this is like a book companion as well, the Tragan cover in and of itself. And so I have this in case I need to write things down because the media journal in the weeks isn't really a place for reactions. It's a data view is what I call it. It's like a pivot table in a sense. So, and I will show you what I mean in a second. I'll get to the commonplace of it all later. But you open it, I have my media journal here, and then I'm writing primarily with a Micron pen, a Micron 01, just to avoid smudging. I've been really enjoying writing with it. I am absolutely terrified of smudging, and so I haven't really been using any fountain pens in here, and I intend to keep it that way for the most part. I don't intend on changing that. But yeah, in here, I just have a couple of Post-its, some transparent Post-its, which I bought and realized I don't have any pens that work on them. I thought the Microns would work, and they do not. And so if you know what I can use to write on these, let me know. I'm thinking that it's probably only a Sharpie, but I don't have any Sharpies, so I'll have to get one. I don't have any pens. I tried multiple types of pens, and I was unsuccessful. So they're just here for now. And then I have these little Bakudeku Post-its that I found the other day cleaning. And then it's just two Polaroids that are from thrift shops that I found. Okay, and then let me zoom you in a little bit. Okay. There is going to be some censoring in this portion of the video because there are some things that I don't really want to show about the things that I'm watching or consuming on the great internet. If you would like an uncensored view of these spreads, then do check them out on my Patreon because in my weekly flip-throughs and my weekly updates, I don't censor them. And I do talk a bit more in depth about the things that I'm consuming. Here, I'm going to talk about mostly how I'm tracking that information in this journal more so than what I'm actually watching. So if you're interested in what I'm actually watching, reading, or listening to, then go ahead and check out my Patreon for those weekly updates. I'm also, it's not censored in a sense, but I am talking about media in general on my Substack article newsletter as well. So if you're interested in that, that's also linked in my description. So that's the first couple of pages. I originally was going to do the dots that I did in my 2024 journal, kind of like tracking my series and anything that took me more than a day to complete. I was going to do dots to track those. If you're interested in knowing what that is, I was going to say that you could see my flip through, but I haven't done the flip through of it. Hold on, let me look for it. In my 2024 journal, which I still haven't finished, I have to go in and finish it. I just haven't had a chance to. I did this inspired primarily by Aaron Ware. Let me show you October's because that's my favorite, or September's. I do the little dots to track the series and the things that take me more than a day to complete, essentially. For the most part, movies don't really make it onto here because I watch movies in one go. I'm not the type to really take multiple days to watch movies. So originally that's what I was going to do here, but then I realized that I wasn't going to have enough space for an index. I was going through this whole thing. Many iterations of what I wanted this media journal to be happened before I came to the conclusion of what it is now, and I'm really really enjoying how I'm doing it at the moment. So I'm really happy. Sometimes it takes a little bit of troubleshooting. So I'm not saying that like if you are not happy in a journal to just immediately switch. I do think it's worth experimenting different ways of doing things before you hop, because it might just be that the way that you're doing it at the moment isn't working for you, and if you kind of switch things up a little bit, then that's sufficient to make you enjoy the journal. And so I'm glad that, I troubleshooted. I really wanted to be in this journal. For me, the media log is meant to be in here. And so I'm not going to move out of this journal for the media log is essentially what I'm doing. But what I ended up deciding is to do in the monthly pages something similar to what I did in 2023 in my media journal, which is fan art. Even though I have some fan art in the hours journal, it's not all of the fan art that I save. It's just a select few. And I wanted I wanted another place to add it. Again, is it repetitive? Maybe, but I love media. And so for me, it doesn't matter. It's not the same as necessarily like journaling, like double journaling. I don't know. For me, it's not the same. So anyways, I just finished this earlier today. And yeah, you can't see a lot of the fan art very well. So it's not like reposting the fan art on places like Twitter or Tumblr, but it just gives me a nice overview again of like the stuff, the fandoms that I was in, the things that I was enjoying. I look at this and I know that I was very heavy into One Piece in January of 2025. And obviously I know that now, and I might know that I was very into One Piece last year as well. But in 5 years' time, I'm not going to know what I was into. I used to do a series, like a personal series, and I never posted it. I would just put it as unlisted. They still exist on my channel as unlisted videos. Every 3 years, I would do a video and kind of answer the same questions to see how things changed in those 3 years. And in 2019, I recorded one, and I was talking about how I was very much into Bellark from the 100 and very much into Raylo, and I was really excited about the Rise of Skywalker that was coming out in a few months' time when I recorded it. I recorded it in October. It was coming out in December, and now looking at that, I want to cry because I know what happened to both of those pairings after the fact, but I wouldn't have remembered off the top of my head, oh, in 2019, I was very into the 100 and the Rise of, and, Raylo, unless I had something to indicate it. And so kind of having this, even if I can't necessarily see them with like the best detail, I know what I was consuming. I know what I was liking and what I was into in the month. And also I could get to appreciate some of this art that I really, really love on a daily basis. And so that's what this spread is for. In the weeklies, I do my log. Oh, and then I added into one of these blank spreads that I whited out. I'm going to add the Year of the Snake fan art that I come across as well. So in the weeklies, I am tracking everything that I watch, everything that I read, everything that I listen to. And I have a color coding system that I then transfer into this little tracker here on the side. I'm also tracking first songs. The format that I did it this week is no longer the format I'm using, but I am tracking the first song that I listen to every day. That's inspired by Maddie over at Hello Naya. She does that as well. And I was very, very inspired by that. I never really tracked music in here before, but I do like the idea of tracking the first song. So I have been doing that. And I had an original plan of like doing this whole thing with like every page, and that immediately died. What I have been doing is putting the covers of the same things that I have listed here just to have a visual cue, which I'm really enjoying that as well. And again, it's just different ways of looking at the same information because I am a data nerd, and it's a little easier for me to see it visually than it is for me to go and read it, even though it's like literally right there. And I just like it. It's a way to fill up the page in a different way because I'm not doing reactions in here. So I needed to figure out what to add to these pages. And I went back and forth for a long time, and I figured, hey, why not do the covers? Like, why not? So that's what I've been doing. And yeah, it's been going really, really well. Here I did the same format with like the Monday through Friday here and first songs, but I did end up switching that to have like this kind of bar over here, and I like that much better. This month I did kind of like similar deco to what I'm used to doing in previous weeks, where I just add like stickers. I have in February, if you watched my February setup, you'll know I'm doing it a little bit differently in terms of the deco this month, where I'm doing more background ish preparation and seeing how that looks like. So I haven't done that first week yet, but I'm excited to see what that looks like. And so you can see this week I didn't like listen to any music at all, which was unfortunate, but it is what it is. So you can see here, for example, there's a little preview into February that I have like a background here, and then they will go on top. So I'm really excited about that. Actually, just a quick side note. I listened to a song today, so let me add that. Today's Sunday, and it was Silver Spoons, but I can't remember the name of the artist. Hold on. And I do write the time because again, I like time stamping things. I don't know what to tell you. Um, so that's what the monthlies look like. I'm sorry, the weeklies. In the back pages, I basically have like collections, right? And so I start off with my pixels in the year. Pixels for the year. And I have one for things that I'm reading, and then I have one for things that I'm watching. I don't do anything for listening. And then I have physical audiobooks, multiple types a day, or ebook and digital. And so that's there. You can see lots of ebooks in January, which is nice, but lots of audio as well towards the end of the month. I was really surprised about that. And there was definitely more reading than there was watching stuff. So a couple of movies, 5 movies, I believe, and then the rest are TV shows. So I really like the pixel tracker. That's something that I did in 2023 that I really wanted to bring back in 2025, and I'm glad that I did. I really like the design as well that I did here. I have the heritage months over here just to know for when I'm planning my TBRs for the month, as well as the buzzword challenge, which is hosted by Books and Lala, Kayla, over at Books and Lala here on YouTube. I have those as well. Again, for preparation of my TBR. I have physical media acquisitions list. I might end up having to make another one of these, but that's fine. This is just the first one. Movie theater visits. Unfortunately, it is February, and I haven't done any movie theater visits, so that's a true sad. Talking about physical media acquisitions, I did end up buying 4 books last month. Just forgot to mention that. I got Orlando by Virginia Woolf, Survival Takes a Wild Imagination by Fariha Royson, Poe, Great Tales and Poems, which is a collection of poems and short stories by Edgar Allan Poe. And I finally got my hands on a physical copy of The Haunting of Hill House. I do have the unboxing of that on Patreon if you would be interested in some more info on that. And then I have the arc list for One Piece because I am going through One Piece, and I like when I do my trackers in the monthlies, I like having when I finished and started an arc, and I have to look it up. And so instead of looking it up, I have it here. I have just started Whole Cake Island. Wow, my cat's going crazy. Frida. And then I was kind of being a little too precious with my notes pages. I was kind of going back and forth. There are different layouts that I want to do, and I was being too precious. And so I decided, I'm going to if I love time stamping so much, then let's just let it be. And so I decided that I am going to do monthly little sections. And if there is a layout that I want to do that is more of a collection style page in between there, that's totally fine. I can just tab it. It's not a big deal. So what I decided to do, and that is because of the changes that are happening with this, I'll talk a little bit about it in a second, was to do the media reviews for the things that I finished in the month in here. And so here's January. I really, really love the little, I love this. It looks so good. I love it. I finished 9 pieces of media in January, and that includes 4 movies. 4 movies? I thought I watched 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I miss one? Anyways, 4 movies, 4 books, and 1 TV show. So I watched 28 Days Later, Interstellar, and I have these little sections here because instead of printing out the titles, I might still end up doing that, but I'm going to try. I just filled this in today, by the way. I did the backlogging for this today because it was just something I decided to finally stop being precious about it. I think I'm going to try painting the covers myself and printing those out instead of it being the same exact copy as what happens in the weeklies. I'm going to try it. That's inspired by Lauren over at Jackalope Arts. I'm not going to do it directly on here, though, because I don't trust myself enough to do that. I'm going to do it digitally and then print them out. If I do not like how they end up looking, then I'll just print out the actual cover, but the space is there for me to do that. So 28 Days Later, Interstellar, We Used to Live Here, Dead Mountain, Mad Max Fury Road, Furiosa, The Wood at Midwinter, Paradise Rot, and my liberation notes were the pieces of media that I finished. Again, those are books, movies, and TV shows. And I just put my rating, what year they were released in, who the director or the author was, if there was a translator, and my rating for it, and whether it was a rewatch or a reread as well. No rereads in January, only rewatches. And then this is my February cover page. It's super cute. I love it. And then I finished 2 things so far in the month. I've rewatched The Menu with my mom and watched Your Monster as well. So that is my media journal. I really, really love it. Again, this is just a log in and of itself. There's not a lot of reactions in it outside from those reviews. All the reaction type things and more of like the deep dive meta situation happens in here. And so originally the tan was going to be where I would do kind of like I decided I would do the reviews in here and it would happen on each day. I've been kind of struggling with that just because sometimes I have to think about placement and making sure that I don't write over certain things. And so that's being a little difficult. So I am going to be moving my media journal companion, this notebook, into a new journal. It's going to be a Hobonichi a cousin. I did purchase a Hobonichi cousin avec because I kept thinking about it. My patrons know. I think I've talked about it like every week for the past 3 or 4 weeks. I'm so sorry, Laura. I did came and buy the Hobonichi cousin. I do plan on using ballpoint pen in there. I don't plan on using my fountain pens too much, so I'm not I'm not super concerned about bleed through. And also, if there is bleed through, it is what it is. I found myself really missing the avec, which is something that happens to me every single year. I never intend to buy the cousin, and then I always do. This is the 3rd time it happened. So I'm just gonna let myself be what it is. But yeah, everything that's in here is gonna end up getting moved into the cousin. So I will talk a bit more about that once it actually arrives and I do my unboxing and haul and what have you. But yeah, this is gonna end up being something else, which I'll get to later. But I did end up doing the dots in here for the first month for January. This is gonna get transferred into the Hobonichi cousin once it arrives. I have my manhwa covered just because that's one of the things that I would like to keep more private and just between me and my patrons. The shows that I watched and the books that I read, and then those are kind of sprinkled throughout. I did try these lines, again inspired by Jackalope Arts and her reading journal, but I don't really like how I executed it. And so next month I'm thinking of doing squares instead. So diamonds for manhwa, circles for books, and circles for TV shows and squares for books. And see how that looks. We shall see. I do like how I decorated it though. So I'm not super pressed about it. It's just, again, kind of experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't work when you're in a new journal. And then, yeah, so I did my little review for We Used to Live Here and Dead Mountain. These are already transferred into the Hobonichi Weeks, as you saw. But then I was also writing about the shows themselves and just other general things. So, like, I rewatched the first episode of season 2 of Squid Game, and it was really, really impactful for me. So I wrote a little bit about that. Writing a bit about some stuff that I was talking to my friend with for just my hero-related stuff. And I did this spread because this song was stuck in my head. And the reason why it was stuck in my head was because of an edit that I saw between Luffy and Sanji. And so I wrote a little bit about that. I wrote some about Mad Max Fury Road and Furiosa. Printed out some screen caps of that. And here's kind of like what I mean about like spacing. So I needed to write about Mad Max Fury Road and Furiosa on Friday because that's when I actually finished it. But I had already did this thing. And so I had to move it over here, but then I had already done this thing. And so I had to figure out kind of like the setting. And this isn't really pertaining to anything related to Mad Max. And so those are one of the things that I'm kind of struggling with. Aside from I'm like having some issues with the weekly setup in and of itself. Like this spread, for example, was not my favorite. And it's because I'm kind of struggling with it for some unknown reason. I can't quite pinpoint. It just feels like it's a little floaty to me. Which is why you can see I'm adding some like lines to try and like block it in. But for some reason it just, it's a little odd. This week I added my top 10 songs to this section because I didn't have anything to add. This is one long quote from Toni Morrison, a review for The Woods at Midwinter. And then this page is one of my favorite pages. This is a huge quote from Orbital, talking about this painting Las Meninas. And I was really, really impacted, first of all, by the quote, but then I looked up the actual painting because I wanted to know what it looked like to have some reference. And then I was super impacted by the painting in and of itself. And so I wanted to write about that. I copied the whole quote from Orbital and then wrote a little bit about what I felt. And yeah, I just really, really love this spread quite a lot. This spread was one that I was struggling with, and then I added images and I liked it. So I wrote a bit about a newsletter quote from Katie Lemon. I was reading that Substack newsletter, and I really liked this quote talking about like when you have goals and they take a little longer to accomplish, or you like set limits and you have to break those limits because of financial reasons or what have you. She was saying, I guess it's a good thing to remember that there's no timeline, no deadline on this stuff. It's not linear. I just want to follow my gut and stay curious. At the end of the day, it does take time and effort to make these things happen. And so it was just a really timely quote that I was very, very much impacted by. And so I wrote that in. Aside from that, I don't just collect quotes and all that stuff. I also collect imagery. And so I printed some of those things out that I had collected in the week. This is, I call it the media journal companion and Commonplace. When it comes to commonplacing specifically, I have two systems. One that I approach from a collector standpoint and one that I approach from a more philosophical, pensive, analytical standpoint. Whenever I want to make connections and talk about and kind of like dig deep into a quote and what it means, and maybe dig deep into the ideas and the themes of what I'm reading, those are things that go into Obsidian, which is my digital commonplace that I can then thread into other ideas that I had and other quotes that I have in a much easier way and a much more whole way. When I am wanting to collect something because it was impactful for me and I want to remember it because of a feeling, then I write that in my journals. So I have like the collector's view and the more analytical view of commonplacing, and this is more of the collector's view, more so than, yeah, the analytical side. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because these are more quotes and not, so you can see like there's a huge quote and only this little bit of information about like what I felt about it. This is much larger if I wanted to talk about this painting as a whole and wanted to have it reference to other things and see maybe other connections or whatever. So like, for example, this quote by Toni Morrison is probably something that I would put in my commonplace and talk about, like this specific quote: there's no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. And how art is also political. Like this is what this quote talks to me about. And so I would want to put that in my Obsidian so I can connect it to other thoughts about art being political, but then also, you know, whatever other things this quote is talking about, just as an example, right? And so that's not what I'm doing here. I'm keeping the quote because I really enjoy, and it was impactful for me when I read it in the moment, and I wanted to archive that. But for me, quotes in this type of setting are more static. And when I'm doing in the Obsidian, they're more alive and dynamic because I can connect them to things a little easier. And it's just easier to then process my own thoughts and link them to quotes and what have you. So that's my little side tangent on commonplacing. I finished Paradise Rot, wrote a little bit about that as well, put a quote here that I really liked, finished my liberation notes, wrote about that. I went on Tumblr looking for different things, and I saw this web weaving post, which I love web weaving. I think anyone who loves commonplacing loves web weaving just naturally. I ended up doing a tip in and putting that in here, and then putting a quote from the movie. And then at the end of the month, which is the beginning of February, I was very into the history of No and started researching that. So I wrote a little bit about that to kind of like, again, archive the fact that this was happening around this time. And yeah, that's what I got for January. And that's it. That's all she wrote, guys. Those are all the journals. I was going to separate them, but honestly, I think that it just worked better to put them together. Maybe next month I will separate the media journal stuff from the regular life stuff. Let me know if you would rather that way or if you'd like them together. But yeah, that's what's been happening in January. It is gonna look different in February once the Hobonichi cousin arrives. This is gonna be a little different. I'm gonna be using the tan for another purpose. I'm gonna be using it for like daily reflections. I forgot to talk about that, but I'm going to be using it for like daily reflections and weekly reflections to kind of set up a practice of reflection in my days. We shall see how that goes. But yeah, the tan is not being removed from the system. It's just changing in its purpose. And the only one that, yeah, is getting somewhat archived is the, nope, the vertical weekly. Lord. Okay, so yeah, that's my system currently. Excited to see what February brings. Let me know how it's going in your journals. How did it go in January? Did you change it up? Did you keep it the same? Excited to hear what you guys are thinking about your journals and how you're feeling about them. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next post. Bye, guys.